Welcome back to the Deal Makers Podcast. I'm Johnny Lynum, retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, real estate investor, and founder of Lynum Capital Partners, where we help investors build, scale, and transition wealth through commercial real estate and strategic capital allocation. This show is all about real stories from real investors, what worked, what didn't, and how they build wealth over time. Today's guest, Phil Ison, is coming with us to share his journey in real estate that started from his time as a PJ, leaving the service and building a phenomenal business built on the backbone of industrial real estate. And the cool thing about that is industrial real estate abroad. And so with no further ado, Phil, welcome to the Deal Makers Club podcast.
Thank you.
So I know we had a really good conversation leading up to the podcast. And so I'll, for using your own words, kind of share your story and how you transitioned from the service and came into the real estate space. And, eventually, I think we're not even in the real estate space, but really was by nature of just your overall business and with the export business.
Well, basically, I just, I lived overseas a lot even after the military and just started looking for things that we could sell here in the United States. Then found a trade show that I could sell the stuff at. Started setting up doing that and then created cash flow. And then I went back to the point where we needed a warehouse, right? Because I'd already invested in a warehouse in Romania back then. So I decided to move back to the States and then started looking and found a larger property than I really needed. It was in bankruptcy. So the cash flow from doing the import business was good enough to, justify buying this thing and then just sit down basically and build it from, with our own hands. We didn't hire any contractors or whatever. We just did the whole thing ourselves. That building was right at 600,000 square feet in Martinsburg, West Virginia. So then I started renting out spaces. I've always felt like the best way to do it, you use what you need for yourself and keep your own owner-occupied part, because everybody wants to see that, it seems like. The banks, if you're not occupying it, they don't want to loan money on it hardly. So you do that and then rent out all the excess space. So if you can buy something in a bankruptcy where you can utilize 50-50 on it, then the other pays the payments and pays for everything. So that's what I've always looked for, was something that we might be able to use part of it and lease part. And went after a lot of owner financing. Because, even if you go back and say, the VA is going to help you and these other people, a lot of these deals, by the time you go through all the paperwork and all the heartache of trying to do the stuff with them and get all your paperwork done, you lose the deal because they don't want the people selling. You don't want to wait that long. So, I've always tried to find people that would do that. Or even with the bankruptcies, you're buying property at a discount, and then most of the time it's already got automatic financing. So that's basically how I've been trying to do it for the last 40 some years now. But
and I was going to say, 40 years and kind of starting and really essentially following the pain. Did you see that kind of as a niche or focus as you kind of stayed in the industrial warehouse space to be able to find those opportunities over time?
Well, I don't think the opportunities that I found are going to be available for a long time. Because I got into it more whenever, the wall had came down. We beat the commies. That was over with. And I took advantage of that when I was living over there. I lived in Eastern Europe for quite a while. And took advantage of import-export there. And then from that, I needed the warehouse space. So then you start looking for, buying something that's in bankruptcy, run down, get it rehab, get it fixed up, and then hope somebody comes along and offers you more than it's worth. Then you do it again. So, as we did those kind of things, we found properties like where I'm at here in Thomasville. We bought the old one of the old Thomasville plants. It's called Plant D. It was the case goods plant. Thomasville was being put out of business by the Chinese, and they were selling all their real estate. So I bought this building, or I didn't. I bought it as the company. I've got my investors. Then we bought this for what we consider nothing.
Okay.
We were buying it at a price that it was almost too good to be true. But most of these old factories that were in the South and even up north, the square footage price was, you were buying something that was distressed. You had to have cash to do it with because no banks would finance it. But from selling another property, then I had cash to do this with. And then you just take it and fix it up. So from doing that, we've had a 500% increase in value.
Wow. That's phenomenal.
So now everybody's offering me, crazy prices. I've been offered, $55 a square foot for this building.
Okay.
And that's a huge increase in what we actually paid for it. But we've also sat down and utilized it.
Okay.
So, everything that I've ever bought, I've tried, if I have to use it, then I want to use half of it and rent the other half. And, but the deals that we did back then, say 2007, 2008, even in the 90s, late 90s, those just aren't available anymore. Because every private equity guy out there now is out looking for real estate deals. And, so you've got to be really with your, spidey senses out to find something. Because, they've got people calling everybody. I get calls, 3-4 times a week of somebody, I want to buy your real estate.
Okay.
So, and they're calling everybody. So, you've got to have enough cash flow to justify it. And then your real estate rental and everything. So you've got a deal there that works, and just keep sitting on it. I've always kind of did one, other than selling the first building that I bought when I came back to the States, I try to make it a policy not to sell real estate. Buy, utilize, fix, and rent, and just keep building it. So, you just keep building your square footage that way. And, it's a long-term thing, and don't do it if you don't think that you might have to get up there and fix the roof and do everything else. Because if you go back and hire all these contractors, you'll never pay for the place.
Right.
But anyway, it's just really hard right now finding property, finding the deals that we did. I've got one friend that started, he's also an ex-Marine.
Okay.
Or Army. No, he was Army. He started, he bought one property for 33 cents a square foot at auction.
Okay.
And by the time he's got done with it now, he's probably made $11 million off of it property.
Nice. That's a pretty good payday.
How are you going to find that in the next bankruptcies?
Yeah.
But he's like me. We've been doing it our whole lives. Basically, after we got out, basically started doing that. So he does the same thing. He's got his operations and his real estate. So at our age now, it's mainly just real estate. But his portfolio, he's probably at 20 million square feet now on industrial properties. But he's always just bought, never sold. So that really is the hardest part for somebody coming out or starting up, to try to get into doing what industrials and stuff like this. So you just got to start small and keep growing it.
Yeah, no, and I think that's the especially in today's society for a lot of investors, and I think just even outside of investors, just the microwave mentality where you want it now. That most investors don't have a long-term horizon. They're not really looking 10, 20, 30 years down the road, in which we, like you just alluded to, that's how you build wealth. You buy it and you forget about it. You're not looking at selling, you're renting it out. And it's a slow increase over time, and appreciation happens. Inflation raises the value of the building over time. I think a lot of investors now are looking for the quick fix, the quick flip, but at the same time, those margins are getting less and less just because of private equity and just supply and demand dynamics, where you have a lot of demand that's just coming across the board for all real estate.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're 100% right. It's just, how do you find something? How do you find the right deal on it? And how can you raise the funds? And on most of the distressed properties that we did, there are no banks that'll help you. They all talk a big story, and you got all these people calling you, we're a broker, send us your bank statements and we'll send you money. Well, it's kind of a joke whenever you're buying real estate. So, you got to use family, friends, anybody else to come up with enough to do it, right?
Yep.
Or find something that a bank has got that they're sitting on, that they're distressed with. If they're distressed, they'll finance it for you. So I've done a couple of them where the banks are in bankruptcy. They've got them. They got to get rid of them. They don't want to carry them on their books. So they'll cut you a deal. You come up with so much down, and they'll finance it. But usually when they do that, you only got 5 years to pay them off. So you got to have a plan.
Yeah, you're on the clock. How have you seen that the acquisition process to be when you're in Romania, in Europe? Was it completely different, or how was that with like buying real estate abroad?
Well, I was there in '89, so the wall had just came down, and people didn't really know the values of anything, and the government was selling stuff off basically for free. Okay. It's like if you had any amount of money. So I saved up, a couple hundred on doing investments and other stuff and things, and, bought a house there for $20,000.
Okay.
But it's kind of like a comedy on that one, because I sold it when I decided to move back to the States. I sold it to a lady for $30,000.
Okay.
Then she called me years later, was wanting to buy a silver diner. The silver diner, and like I told her, $750,000, and she's, it's not a problem. I sold the house. Wow. So, if you're in an area and you're in the military, and you can figure out a way to buy some of these properties, even buying something in Thailand or wherever, that stuff grows fast too. And,
okay.
It depends on where you're stationed at. But I wouldn't be afraid at all to buy, apartment buildings or investment properties in other countries, especially if you're military and you've been traveling and you know your territory. And a lot of the guys marry locals,
Right.
You buy the stuff, sit on it, and sell it later. Then you've got your investment capital coming back toward this way. Right. So, there's several different ways to do it. But the hardest one is just find the building, and I got 10% down or 20% down, and go find a bank to finance you. It's really, really difficult. So, and I think one apartment building that we got now, it was in really bad shape in a bad area. So bought that on a land contract. And some states are illegal, so it's just basically a lease purchase or something else. You got to look for alternatives to financing properties that's outside the banks if you're really going to get it done.
Yeah, and I think that those alternatives, that's how you're gonna get those asymmetric returns where you're gonna build wealth at a rapid pace. Because if you're going out here buying, like you said, chasing the bank and buying, something that's all fixed up and pretty, it's like, hey, it's gonna take a long time for that appreciation to take effect if you can't do the value add.
Right. Well, like on if you're buying something on a land contract or a lease purchase, basically you already own it. So later, if you've got 2 years or 3 years under your belt paying on the thing, then you got a better chance of going back to a bank and financing it because, they look at it like a refi. So instead of you buying the thing and trying to prove to them that you can pay for it, you've already got a proven track record. So, that's one of the better ways to do it to get yourself started. But, or just, I don't know. I've heard some other friends of mine that, use the VA, buy one house, they live in it for a little bit. The next year they buy another one and move to it and then keep the other one for rental. That's a little slower process, but you can end up with, if you got 10 or 20 properties that way, take care of you.
Yep.
After a little bit, they get down to the point where you don't have to have that job. It's making enough income there.
Most definitely. No, that's definitely smart advice. That was how I got started. Using my VA loan every PCS 3-4 years, you buy another one. And, in our case, we ended up buying foreclosures after the first one at every duty station. And I talked to a retired Navy guy last week that, first house he bought was in San Diego back in I think it was back in the early 90s. And, he never sold all the houses that he bought, from Virginia Beach and, Alexandria, Virginia, when he was stationed at the Pentagon. And so that process, but it takes discipline. It takes the mindset and approach that, hey, I'm going to make the sacrifices to, hey, buy this piece of real estate when I PCS and move and maybe forego the brand new car or, the fancy vacations or what have you. And kind of have that approach. Right.
Well,
really now. Oh, go ahead.
Well, basically, that's a lot of the younger guys, they get their first property and the next thing you know, they're buying themselves a luxury car, right? You can buy another property. What you got wrapped up in that thing, you got to throw it. But you're just throwing that money away. Most of the guys that you see running around here with good properties are driving a Honda that's got 300,000 miles on it. You might buy your wife a little better car, but you spend money on real estate. Don't spend it on this throwaway stuff.
100%.
Another thing, really, what it comes down to is, once you you get your properties, then you need to throw them into a trust. Where somebody can't come after you and take them and stuff like this. Because once you get them into a trust, you get the asset of it and then you can keep borrowing money against that. So if you've got a house that you've paid $50,000 for it and it's got a valuation now of $300 or $350 after you've done everything and brought it up and, showed that it's worth that, borrow the money against it. Borrow 100% of what you can get on that and take it and put it in something else. Because all that borrowed money is tax free.
Yes.
You don't have to pay on this. You pay yourself a W-2 or 1099 off your houses or your property. That's just shooting yourself in the foot.
Yep.
Put it into another safe haven, basically, that you get the income from whenever there is some. But just borrow the money from that to buy the next one yourself. Become your own bank.
How was that journey? Was that always your approach with leveraging the debt as you can on real estate? Because I know you have both sides of the fence with that, where some are, hey, I want everything 100% paid off and have zero debt. But then the other side is you leveraging, using leverage to your advantage in order to reinvest it and to get the next deal. So how has that evolved for you over time, or have you always kind of had that approach?
Well, my I also learned a little bit of this from the family because, my father was in the real estate, the industrial properties and stuff. So he wouldn't, the only thing he ever had paid off was his car. Right.
Okay.
Because if the rent rolls on something would substantiate, say if you got a property and you owe $20,000 in a month in rent, you better have $20,000 in mortgage that you got mortgaged on. Try to have $20,000 in rental coming in on that property. And then you're using it, the other part for something else, but don't take it over 50% of the value of the real estate for a mortgage. And, keep it at the increased rate because, I know the IRS might chase you around for it, but if you're not declaring it as income, pay yourself, you take a dividend on a house or something like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Depends on what accountant you've got. But if you show yourself that you took this house, you bought it for $50,000 or $100,000, and now it appraises for $300,000, and you borrow 70 or 60% of the value of that, and then take that money and do something else with it, it's basically tax free. A lot of people preach about that, but if you can keep 28 or 30% of what your tax would be on a piece of property to put it in the next one, you can grow a little faster. So, there's a methodology that would help you grow faster. But I've always tried to tell my kids, you keep your little W-2 thing that you got to have something to pay taxes on, and then everything else you're borrowing and stuff like this, you never, treat that money as a W-2 or a 1099. But I'm not a tax guy. I've just been doing it for, so, but that way we built the trust up to a substantial amount of money. So,
Okay.
Just rolling it over. And I probably owe the trust a few $1 million. But whenever I die, it'll be, I'll write the check and stick it in the casket or something.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. I think that's the approach, but really having a plan, because the thing is, you can't take it with you, with either the debt nor the buildings themselves. And I think you said something very profound with having the trust, but then passing that on and the information and giving it to your next generation. How's that process been? Or have they gravitated to real estate, and have they kind of seen how you've built up the wealth over the years and really kind of see that as a vehicle for them as well?
Yeah, yes and no. The problem that you get into is, kids grow up and they got their own ideas of life, and, you're just promoting that. So the real estate ends up being generational wealth. You can roll it over, and then all they do is either manage it themselves or find a management company that takes over, and they get their 6%. Because just because we think that we're wonderful at it doesn't mean that our kids are going to be wonderful, and doesn't mean that they can actually do it. But
yes,
so you just set it up basically where they can manage the money coming out of it if they can't take care of the properties. Because as you change that, then you start changing the investment strategies on real estate to the point where you're not buying something that you got to actually get up on the roof and put the new roof on yourself, down to properties that are a little bit more self-maintaining, that you don't have to work on every day. So whenever I started doing this, I never will forget, we bought a building at auction, and when my wife and I went down to look at it, she's sitting there in the car crying, "What did you do?"
Oh gosh.
And we got it. And by the time we got done with it, she's she got an appraisal on it 20 times what we paid for it. So she's happy with it now. But
I bet.
in an area where, we cleaned it up and rented it. So that building's probably, I would say, made more money for us down through the years than any of the other properties.
Wow.
So, but I did everything myself.
Okay.
Scraped the walls, painted them, put the new roof on, did everything. Because you couldn't go at the condition of that real estate in. I couldn't have bought it if I didn't have a check for it at the price. It was a bank foreclosure.
Okay.
And then you just had to do it yourself. But then after I brought it up to a certain level, bank come in. Oh yes, this is the appraisal on it. Yeah, we'll loan you money on it. Okay, so but it was clean, nice looking, and rented.
Yeah. I think that's the thing they always say. The bank is the only place you can go get money when you don't need it, because when you need it, there's nowhere to be found.
100% right. And and then after you get to, your family might help you a little bit, but then after you get to a certain point, the jealousy sets in. Then they don't want to help you anymore, right? So you end up with hardly being able anybody to go to.
I've heard investors. I've seen a little bit of that myself, and you start with family and friends, but a lot of times you outgrow them, and people change. People change, and I've been blessed. My immediate family didn't have to go through that, but I've heard the stories, and the hands being out and everything that comes with it. Most people spend more time planning a vacation than planning what actually happens after a major real estate sale. I'm Johnny Lynum, retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, real estate investor, and financial advisor. I help commercial real estate owners and accredited investors navigate 1031 exchanges, passive income strategies, and long-term wealth planning with institutional level insight. If you're thinking about selling, exchanging, or repositioning capital, let's build a strategy that protects your wealth and creates freedom. Simply visit johnnylynum.com/call to schedule a private strategy session today. How's your relationship with your wife evolved with the real estate? I know she kind of screamed from there, but how was that after that one building she saw the transformation? Was she a believer after that?
Well, we've always been in the furniture business, so that's how I met her. My wife's from Romania.
Ah, okay.
We met over there. We've been together over 30 years now. But, she wanted to come to the States. She thinks it's the best country in the world, even though I like the house in Romania better than I do here sometimes. But she's got her economics degree from, always tease her, she's got her master's in economics from a communist university that didn't even know how to write a checkbook.
Okay.
But now she's the controller. She runs all the funds and stuff like this. So
that's great.
She really learned, and probably on making the properties better, it's more her doing it now. She's driving the whole thing, because, whatever you're first doing buildings and you're doing it on a string, you cut corners. So she's always telling me she's got to go back and fix all my corner cutting now to make it perfect, right? So we bought one property and the carpet was rotted to the floor. So, it's so bad. But she's really likes the real estate business now, put it that way.
For sure. That's great. And I think that's the thing, like being able to have it. For like my wife, we had our first child. She kind of left the workforce and kind of helped with the business after we started flipping houses. We're kind of managing the day to day, and having that. And it wasn't always from day one the same relationship as it is now with the business. She's grown into it and took some stuff off my plate. And a lot of entrepreneurs that I talk to, real estate investors, that having that man, that Robin, that sidekick for you that can step in and help and hold down the fort and be able to kind of do the journey with makes a world of difference. Because I call it the roller coaster because real estate has its ups and downs. You get one great news here, and then you got to get kicked in the junk an hour later with something else. And so it's an ever evolving journey. I think having somebody by your side along the way makes all the difference.
Yeah, there's been times too we've been wondering how we can pay real estate taxes, and basically 90% of the property we own now is all paid for because the cash flow takes care of stuff. But there at one time we were wondering why in the world we do this, how are we going to survive? And they just keep pushing, and it keeps going. It's like you learn. In the old days, you don't give up, right? If you stop and stand still, somebody's going to shoot you. So you just keep right on going, right? You don't give up, you don't quit. And it's worked out okay for us. And but we also had a import furniture business all the time, and she basically did that. We've got a small company called Trade Winds Furniture. We import from Indonesia, and we later got a small factory over there, and that's always created cash flow to take care of the small stuff. And,
nice.
Then the building where I'm sitting at right now, this building's 290,000 square feet, and we're turning it into a cash and carry outlet to get rid of 40 years of importing. And sometimes you buy a building. A friend of mine bought a building, and it was full of kitchen cabinets. And he called me, wanted me to go get them. So I went down there, and there were 60,000 kitchen cabinets in that building. Wow. That had been abandoned basically by a Chinese importer. So we moved them all, brought them down here, and sold them off for $20 a box. So doing stuff like that sometimes. Because in these bankruptcy deals, sometimes you get everything in the building.
Okay.
So the one we were talking about, the one that she's crying about, basically the way it ended out, we got everything in the building, and we sold off the product that was in that building, and equipment and everything else, ended up with a profit on selling it above what we paid for the building. Wow. So, so when somebody tells you, well, that thing's full of stuff, I never did cry about that.
Okay.
We'll just take it as is. Give me the key to the door and go away, right?
Yeah, no, 100% for all the listeners. There you have it. Distress and being able to, I think outside the box is critical, because there's always opportunities, and there's always multiple streams of income and ways to generate revenue outside of just the traditional way we think about only looking at it as real estate.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a little bit like, what your training was. You create your plan, everybody gets their organizational plan, and we're all going to go out and do this. And then as soon as you get out in the field, it all goes to hell, and you got to start all over again. So real estate investing is no different. You got a great plan, and maybe it worked, but if it didn't, you got to improvise, change, go a different route. But just don't give up. Just keep going. Because there's no more, they're not making any more dirt. And it's not going to, it might go down a little in value, but it's a whole lot better than holding a currency that, burns your pocket.
Yeah.
Real estate, it might burn your pocket a little bit, but it takes you a long time to get rid of it sometimes. So you think about it twice. It's a long-term thing. So
most definitely. And I think that's a great point, because a lot of times we lose sight of kind of the long term, and, the implications, like the silent cost of inflation and the currency going down in value, and how real estate kind of, continues to, defy inflation, and kind of is a great hedge for that. So, looking at kind of that investor that may be sitting on the sidelines, maybe done a deal or two, and kind of figuring out, hey, what's my next step? And, and kind of figuring it out. What would you say to someone that's kind of started but hasn't really taken the bull by the horns and really committed to the real estate investing journey? What would be your words of advice or wisdom for them?
Well, basically, I don't know what I would say. I know what I would say, but probably can't say it here. But if you're going to do it, do it. Commit to it, make it happen. But you also keep your other thing as your backup in case something goes wrong. But it's not a short-sighted thing, right? If you decide you like the real estate business, you like putting up a door and doing that kind of stuff and maintaining things and getting called at 5 a.m. to go fix the toilet, then do it. But once you're committed, make it happen. It's just like getting off that chopper. Once you're off that thing, there ain't no going back. Right?
Not at all.
And I was with a friend and crossed the ocean on his boat. And I decided to never do that again because once we got on that thing, got out there in the water, there was no turning back and there was no stopping. You like to turn these waves off and stuff like this, but real estate's not much different than that. Once you're committed, do it. Don't get wishy-washy about it because that's when you lose money and screw up. And if there's a little something wrong, wait it out. There's highs and lows in every industry in the world, and real estate's no different. So one time we were 70% empty. We had no tenants. And that was low for us back then. So
on that trip across the ocean, how many days did it take you guys to make it across?
Oh, it's about 2 weeks by the time we got to Gibraltar. We went all the way to Romania.
Wow.
But the worst part about it was I'm not a vegetarian, and the guy that handled the ship was a vegetarian. So it was a torture. But anyway, but like I said, on a little small sailboat with 4 people on it, you get out in the water, you can't stop it till you get there.
Yeah.
So invest in real estate, same thing. Once you go in there and you bid that thing with the court, you can't back up. You're in it. Make it happen.
I love that. You're in it. Make it happen. Well, Phil, this has been phenomenal. I think the words of wisdom, the stories have been great, and really just being able to create an import business, focus on industrial real estate, and just the continued journey over 40 years, I think is phenomenal. And just the process with building wealth and being able to overcome adversity and just the fortitude and the approach with being able to build wealth long term and stay in the game, I think is phenomenal. And so I definitely appreciate you taking the time today and coming on the show and giving these words of wisdom to the audience and sharing with them.
Yeah. Well, don't mind trying to help some kids or whatever, because I'm on the downside of my real estate investing. So, there's plenty of opportunities out there. You just got to keep digging for them and go after it and make it happen. So anyway,
For sure.
Appreciate the opportunity, but other than, I'm sitting here in this old office in this warehouse, scaring people to death. That's as old and ugly as I've gotten now, but, it's been a good ride. And
For sure.
I've got a good partner in that likes the business, and I probably couldn't do it without her. So,
That's great. That's great.
So
yeah,
I'm here. We're debating on what we're trying to do now. We're going to take. There's 3 partners in this facility here. We'd have right at 1 million square feet.
Okay.
We kind of decided we're going to take that and see if we can. We're putting a nonprofit together, and we're going to take it and turn it into a trade school for
That's phenomenal.
people, and do the nonprofits so kids can afford to go to it and stuff. So we're going to take the old factories and so I've got this building sitting here and I've got the CNC routers and all the equipment to build everything with, and I just don't want to do it anymore. So we'll take the machinery and see if we can set up a thing to where the old office building turns into, apartments and classrooms, and then the Plant C and Plant D, we take those and turn them into training centers. So that's going to be our last project.
Okay. No, most definitely.
Yeah. So, after that, we'll see what happens. But by the time we get that done, I'll probably so old that I won't be able to remember who anybody is. Right. So anyway, but I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I was just going to say, but the legacy is definitely going to live on, and thank you for your service as well. And I think that's phenomenal with giving back, because I think with all this is being able to leave the earth and leave this place better than we found it. I think you definitely have succeeded at doing that.
Yeah. Well, I never would believe that going from a dairy farm in Southern Ohio to a medic in the Air Force to being in the furniture business, I never would have believed back then I'd end up in the furniture business just buying old factories. So your life changes as you go forward. Just embrace it and make it happen.
Embrace it and make it happen. I love it. So true.
All right. Well, anyway, that's about it for me right now.
All right. Well, no, thanks again, Phil. This has been great. Appreciate your time. And and we'll be in touch soon.
All right. Thank you. All right. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks again, everyone, for turning into the Deal Makers podcast. If you got value from today's conversation with Phil, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, share this episode with another investor, entrepreneur, or professional who could benefit from it. Our goal is simple: bring you real conversations, real strategies, and real stories from people building wealth and creating impact. And if you'd like to connect to learn more about what we do here, go over to johnnylynum.com or book a call at johnnylynum.com/call. And appreciate you being here. And I'll see you on the next episode.